One inexplicable incident might be a message only for one devotee in the hall. That devotee might understand the import of the message. The rest of us, not knowing the full circumstances, would merely be bewildered. Or in another case, Bhagavan might notice that the ego of a devotee sitting before him was rising, and he may rebuke him in some way. The others in the hall might interpret this as an unprovoked attack. I relate here an incident that produced a reaction in Bhagavan, which I alone could understand. A friend of mine who had no faith in swamis came to the ashram. Having decided in advance not to prostrate to Bhagavan, he spent the time of his brief visit wandering around the ashram. In the evening, as it was summer, Bhagavan's chair was placed outside near the well. Bhagavan sat on it, surrounded by the devotees, and my friend wandered into the area at the time and felt an irrepressible desire to prostrate, and he fell full length at Bhagavan's feet. Bhagavan only laughed loudly. None of the devotees, except for me, knew why Bhagavan had suddenly laughed. Everyone else was looking around, trying to ascertain the cause of Bhagavan's laughter. Bhagavan was never impressed by the achievements, reputation, or pedigree of the people who visited him. They might have done a lot of sadhana, but it made no difference when they appeared before him. When many such people came to show off their deep sadhana, he would not even raise his eyes to look at them. Sometimes he would laugh and show great love towards particular devotees, but at other times he would be totally indifferent to the same one. For some visitors, he would come down to their level and answer each of their questions with great patience, but he would not even open his mouth if the same questions were put by someone else. Though Bhagavan would make no adverse remarks about traditional practices, he did not support his devotees if they did so. Chalam, one of his early devotees, told him with great pride about her puja with 1 lakh leaves. And Bhagavan remarked, "Instead of pinching the plant, could you not pinch your own skin 1 lakh times and perform puja that way?" Sometimes Bhagavan would be indifferent to all the events that were going on around him, such as when he was in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But at other times he would show a keen interest in the trivia of everyday life. Once he took great care of a sparrow's egg, which had fallen down from the nest, until the baby sparrow emerged. Afterwards he showed the baby sparrow to everyone. But the next moment he might reply uninterestedly, "Oh, is that so?" if it was reported to him that someone who was considered to be known had passed away. Bhagavan was a great champion of the oppressed, and he had a natural tendency to side with the social underdog in any dispute. He insisted that he would not eat in the dining room until all the poor at the ashram gate that were awaiting food had been fed. If the ashram prepared diluted sambar for the poor, Bhagavan would get angry and insist that he be fed with the same. Even when he was ill, he would insist that the fruit and milk that were given to him for medicinal reasons should be distributed among all those present in the hall. Bhagavan frequently made it clear that he did not want devotees to be prevented from seeing him. In view of his declining health, Bhagavan needed rest. Guards were placed outside his room with strict instructions to avoid any disturbance from visitors. A sadhu who happened to arrive at the ashram wanted to see Bhagavan, but the guards and the office staff turned down his request firmly. The disappointed sadhu started walking sadly towards the gate. Bhagavan might have overheard his request, for when the sadhu passed Bhagavan's room, he was astonished to find Bhagavan standing outside waiting for him. They gazed at each other for some time, and then the sadhu went on his way, and Bhagavan returned to his room. A significant number of Bhagavan's devotees were Orthodox Brahmins. They ate at a separate enclosure in the dining room. Bhagavan never objected to this arrangement, but he did show his disapproval if any of the Brahmins looked down on members of the lower castes. A Brahmin woman in the ashram avoided all non-Brahmins because she felt that any contact with them would pollute her. If she were ever touched by a non-Brahmin, she would go up to Bhagavan and touch him to purify her. Once on Bhagavan's Jayanti day, the birthday, someone touched her accidentally. She went to Bhagavan and said, "Bhagavan, a Sudra has just touched me. Please touch me to remove the impurity." "Go away. I will not oblige you," said Bhagavan angrily. Bhagavan's mother was a very orthodox lady, full of caste prejudices and superstitions. Bhagavan did not tolerate any of her ideas. He criticized her many times and was quite ruthless in destroying all that stood in the way of her emancipation from ignorance and fear. When she refused to cook onions, which are taboo to a Brahmin widow, Bhagavan would show her one and say, "How mighty is this little bulb? It can stop my mother from going to heaven." Although Bhagavan was half naked and lived in a very ostentatious way, most people were afraid to approach him, to even speak with him. Important men, such as senior army officials or highly placed persons who held important positions in various fields, trembled and were afraid to go up to that decrepit old form that had neither temporal power nor even a significant following. Bhagavan's appearance changed periodically. When he sat looking out beyond horizon, he would remind us of Lord Dakshinamurti in dhyana posture. When he sat in his majestic, unmoving posture, which he often did, there was unspeakable beauty and grace in his figure. Wearing only a loincloth, he would bring to our minds an emperor wearing magnificent robes, sitting on a diamond-studded throne, with all the paraphernalia of his estate. But then, when somebody called Bhagavan, he would come down from some unknown region to this earth to attend to the call. Gurus like Bhagavan are manifestations of God in human form. To relieve and redeem the suffering of mankind, the Lord occasionally comes down to earth and manifests in a physical form